I found a wedding invitation from the future, and it had my name on it. The attic in our house was always the place we dumped old memories. Boxes of forgotten things, old clothes, broken furniture we were too sentimental to throw out. It smelled like dust and time, and the wooden floor creaked under every step. That day, I was just looking for Christmas decorations. Something routine, something simple, but what I found instead changed everything. Now, I know how it sounds. Like I'm about to tell you some made-up story. But I'm telling you, it happened. And I've spent every day since trying to figure out what it meant. So, let me start from the beginning. I'm Ethan Miller, 42 years old, software architect, married to Clara, also 42. We'd been together for 15 years, had two amazing kids, Lily, who's 12, and Leo, who just turned 8. Life was steady, maybe a little too predictable sometimes, but it was good. We weren't perfect, but we were solid. You know, the kind of life you quietly thank the universe for when things are calm and peaceful. Anyway, that afternoon I went up to the attic to pull out the old Christmas lights. Clara was downstairs making tea, humming like she always did, and the kids were in their usual chaos over who got the PlayStation controller first. Everything felt normal, until I found that box. It was tucked behind an old suitcase we hadn't touched in years. A dark wooden box, polished, no markings on the outside. Looked antique. I thought maybe it was one of Clara's grandmother's keepsakes. I dusted it off and opened it. That's when everything shifted. Inside was a wedding invitation. Thick, creamy paper, gold foil lettering, all elegant and formal. My first thought was, this must be from our wedding. A fancy extra one we forgot about. But then I read the names. You are cordially invited to the wedding of Ethan Miller and Sophia Rossi. I swear, my heart skipped a beat. Sophia Rossi. Who the hell was Sophia Rossi? That wasn't Clara, and I've never, in all my life, met anyone with that name. My brain tried to rationalize. Maybe it was another Ethan Miller. Maybe it wasn't meant for me. But the date printed on it stopped me cold. July 21st, 2026. Exactly 1 year from that day. And the date I was holding it. July 21st, 2025. I checked my phone like 3 times just to be sure. It didn't make any sense. My name. A date in the future. A bride I didn't know. I stood there in the attic for a good 5 minutes, holding it, staring at it like it would start explaining itself. It didn't. It just sat there, elegant and creepy. I didn't tell Clara. I didn't even bring it down with me. I slipped it back into the box and carried the whole thing to my home office. Tucked it under some old tax folders in the drawer, trying to pretend like nothing had happened. But that night, while Clara lay next to me sleeping peacefully, I couldn't close my eyes. Was I going to leave Clara? Was something going to happen to her? Why would there be a wedding invitation, clearly from the future, with my name on it and a different bride? The idea of it haunted me, not just because it was strange, but because deep down, it made me question everything. Was my life already written? Was something bigger going on that I couldn't understand? I tried to push it aside, live like normal, but I kept coming back to it. I started looking up the name Sophia Rossi. It's more common than I thought. Tons of profiles, LinkedIn, Instagram, you name it. But none seemed remotely connected to me. Work became a blur. I'd stare at my screen but not really see it. My friend Mark, who's been my buddy since college, asked if I was okay. I told him I was just tired. That was partly true. Even Clara noticed. She started giving me these little concerned glances. The kind that said she was worried but didn't want to push. And every time I looked at her, I felt this knot in my chest. I mean, this was my wife. My partner. The mother of my kids. And yet, a single piece of paper had started to unravel something deep inside me. Not because I wanted to leave her, but because I suddenly didn't know if I had a choice. A few weeks later, when everyone was out of the house, I went back to the attic. I started looking around like a man possessed. Something about the invitation felt too perfect. Too placed. Like it had been meant for me to find. That's when I stumbled on something else. In a hidden crawl space behind an old bookshelf, I found another box, this one older, dustier. Inside was a black and white photo of a couple on their wedding day. The woman looked so much like the Sophia from the invitation that it gave me chills. And the man, he looked like me. I'm not saying he was my twin, but the resemblance was weird. He had the same eyes, same jawline, even the same nervous smile I have in my own wedding pictures. There was a tiny card beneath the photo, Ethan Miller and Sophia Rossi. Married 1958, that completely broke my brain. That wasn't possible. I was born in 1983. My grandparents were Arthur and Eleanor. No one in my family had those names. But here was another Ethan Miller, married to a Sophia Rossi, decades ago. I started digging into the history of the house. Turns out, it was owned by a different Miller family back in the 50s. A distant branch, barely connected to mine. Some long-lost cousin or something. And that branch had stories, odd ones. I came across an old article in the town's historical archive. It mentioned that couple, Ethan and Sophia, as being local artists, kind of eccentric, known for believing in echoes. Not sound echoes, emotional ones. They believed that deep love could ripple through time, that some people were destined to find each other over and over again in different generations. That's when the word hit me, echoes. The invitation, the photo, the box. It wasn't just a prank or coincidence. It was some kind of message. But from who, and why me? The weeks that followed were just weird. I started seeing the world through 2 lenses. One was my real life, with Clara and the kids. The other was this alternate life that might be waiting. It was like standing at a fork in the road where both paths are already drawn but only one is meant for you. And then, she showed up. Sophia, not the one from 1958, of course. A modern-day Sophia Rossi. 38 years old, a landscape architect who had just hired our firm to build her client management software. I nearly dropped my coffee when I read her name on the intake form. When I met her, it was like déjà vu. She was charming, smart, had this natural warmth to her that felt instantly familiar. There was no romantic tension, not at first, but something about her felt like I'd known her forever. We worked together for a few weeks. Professionally, it was smooth, even fun. Personally, it was terrifying. Because every time I looked at her, I saw the invitation. I saw the photo. I saw the possibility of something I didn't understand but couldn't ignore. But you know what finally cleared the fog? One night, I came home, and Clara was sitting on the floor helping Leo build a rocket out of cardboard. Lily was dancing around in one of my shirts, pretending to be on a fashion runway. And I just stood there for a second, watching, feeling. This was my life, my real life, not a prophecy, not a possibility, not an echo. And I realized something important. Just because something might be destined doesn't mean it's right. Or true, or better, the invitation from the future. Maybe it was real, maybe it wasn't, but I knew in that moment, it didn't matter. I made a choice that night. I pulled the invitation out of the drawer, looked at it one last time. Then I tore it in half, piece by piece, ripped it until it was just scraps of meaningless paper. I kept the photo, though, filed it away under family artifacts. Maybe one day I'll tell the kids about it, when they're old enough to understand weird stories about time and fate and choices. But the life I chose, it's here, with Clara, with Lily and Leo, with the messy kitchen and the school runs and the bedtime stories and the worn-out couch. That other path, maybe it was never mine to begin with. Maybe it was just a test to see if I knew what I had. And I did.